Welcome once again. In this program we're going to be dealing with the shepherd's crook, and obviously it first was used many hundreds of years ago in sheep rearing areas. It could have been Wales, Scotland. I'm not going to offend any particular area of the country in saying where it came from originally, but it started in much this sort of form, only very rougher probably in the beginning, just to catch a sheep. This is the plain crook, and what we're going to be dealing with is putting a thistle on the end. And if you can imagine possibly shepherds who had lots of time on their hands and wanted something to do, I suppose to carve the nose end of the crook was an obvious thing to do. But this is basically it, and the main difference being that we will not twist the nose out but have a flat blade down here and then actually carve the thistle out of the blade that we have on the end when we finish pressing the horn. As you can see, it's also crisscrossed here and got some lines in the thistle round there. Again, that's up to the maker. It can be left totally plain if you wish. Okay, now we've got the horn reasonably clean on either side so that we can make a drawing of where the scroll is going to be here and where the thistle is going to be. Now we've got roughly the front line into shape, and you can see where the scroll at the bottom is going to be, but it would be good if we could have that scroll a little larger here, and we've actually got the meat in the horn to do that because it's thinner at the back than it is at the front. So I'm going to heat just this section here and squash that to bring that section out a little bit wider. I think we've got enough heat, and we put it in just over the scroll like that, and then we tighten up good and hard. Obviously this can be adjusted a little one way or the other, but I just want to get a rough idea of where the thistle's going to be. File the sides so that we've got even uniform sides. So the next thing really to do is to start taking these little pieces out here. Now I'm hoping that we are going to come up any moment now and come back into the second hole. There we go. And at this stage we now take the coping saw blade out. It would be difficult to carve the piece I'm carving at the moment by doing it the other way around, but you have also got to keep in mind that horn does have a grain much the same as wood, and you may find that as you're cutting into it, it's starting to pull the grain up. So if that happens, try to turn the horn around, cut through on. But to do that, I'll have to go back to this small chisel and work from the other side. Let's see if we're through yet. Yep, there we go. Cut through on. But to do that, I'll have to go back to this small chisel and work from the other side. Let's see if we're through yet. Keep looking at it also, because if you're not careful, what you might do is take too much from one side and then the whole thing will become unbalanced. So let's continue and see if we can get that down to a sort of size that looks correct. I think the stem now is roughly in proportion with the thistle. I keep looking at it also, because if you're not careful, what you might do is take too much from one side and then the whole thing will become unbalanced. So let's continue and see if we can get that down to a sort of size that looks correct. I think the stem now is roughly in proportion with the thistle. We don't want to make it too thin, otherwise it's going to look as if it won't support the rest of the thistle. And it's reasonably accurate and running up through the stem here. In cutting in and getting that round, we've made one or two little flat spots on the top of the curl here and one or two underneath here on the bowl of the thistle. So what I'm going to do next is put this back in the vise and trim those little pieces off with a chisel. Okay, now we've got the head on the shank, I've filed the horn all round, and basically we've got the shape we want. The next thing to do really is to start sanding and using the emery cloth. Now I'm going to put it back in the vise here, and let's just have a look at the emery cloth. You do need emery cloth for this. You've got to make sure that it's got a backing on it. Paper's no good because it will fall to pieces too quickly. And what we have here is a very thin strip, which will be very useful for getting in the little corners and round the scroll at the end. Now hopefully we'll see exactly. Right, there we have the finished product. I'm pleased with it. It's come up very well, and you can see some little black marks here that have been in the horn that were actually coming down at this angle originally, and you can see them there, and even a couple of little black marks on the thistle itself, which I think all adds to the character.